Hey, everybody, welcome to the Rise Up Together podcast, very first episode. And I'm joined by a couple of my buddies, Max and Tim. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, what's up, everyone? My name is Maxwell. I run an Instagram account called Rise Up Riseman, which is all about advocating for mental health, building inclusive communities, and promoting positivity. And that's kind of like my life mission now, I'd say, just to I don't know, I try to use this mindset of trying to help people out with mental health and bring kindness wherever I go. And I think it's something the world needs more of. So, yeah.
Right on.
Awesome.
And Tim?
Yeah, hey guys. Hey, this is Tim. Have a mental health startup change grower. Was trying to build an app. I feel like a lot of our mental health struggles come from technology and information overload and that kind of thing. So I'm like, why not harness technology for good? But maybe the answer is not technology. Maybe it's just going outside and taking a walk, being off of technology, right? So still trying to figure that out and happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. And I'm Joey, and I'm actually working on something myself, mostly related to helping young adults like myself, giving them more holistic methods of managing depression. So stay tuned for that. Working on a journal right now, so more to come. But anyway, I would love for you guys to us to go around and just share our stories. A little bit of background of your journey with mental health and what that looks like. So if you guys wouldn't mind sharing briefly, as much as you're comfortable with, love to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm pretty open about my mental health struggles now through like social media and other stuff. But I've struggled with like anxiety, OCD throughout my life, and it's something that made me like question whether I'm like mentally tough at certain points. And I like there's this guy David Goggins who I follow, and I recently realized I can't Goggins my way through everything, and I realized like mental health is a real thing. I always try to push through things, and I reached a point actually recently where I actually went like despondent. Because I was just like it was just too much, and I literally went like nonverbal, like special, like I went like special in that moment, and it was a wake up call to be like, okay, I need to like really prioritize my mental health and like know that I am pushing myself hard. No, if you go despondent, like that's crazy. That's insane. So it's just like mental health matters and we need to put more resources out there because a lot of things that are out there, it makes people reach that point because there's a lot of like, especially with young men, it's like a lot of toxic masculinity and like not being in check with your emotions because it's not cool. It's not masculine. But meanwhile, everyone struggles with their own things and you see people taking out their emotions in the most unhealthy ways like possible through fighting and drug abuse and all these different things that and like even if you look at the suicide rates of men, what it's absurd, right? Like this data there, I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but I know a lot of men engage in that. So that's just more reasons why we need to be doing stuff like this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Max. And Tim, if you want to go a little bit into your background, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, guys. So, for me, I don't think my story is very unique. Just, experienced some trauma growing up. Um, childhood bullies, parents got divorced. There was some drug addiction and mental illness to that. Obviously I coped in the best way I knew how to, which is like when you go through trauma, you're more prone to addictions. And I mean, you name it, I could probably get addicted to it. There's addictions all around us, and addictions are also stigmatized. And after going to therapy and 12-step groups and other things like that, I've learned a lot about myself, a lot about mindfulness, spirituality, just noticing the negative thoughts and trying to flip them around, trying to be compassionate towards myself. I was really hard on myself. And lately I've found myself, saying no to things, trying to get stuff off my plate so I'm not like overwhelmed and burnt out. And, so setting boundaries with people and you know, kind of standing up for myself, so to speak, which is so important. I think people pleasing was like the fawn response was what my nervous system learned to cope. And sometimes we carry maladaptive coping mechanisms into adulthood that we have to relearn and rewire our brains. So yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that, Tim. And for myself, I would say a lot of the struggles started back in high school, especially around, I had a lot of my identity in my athletics, like, you know, as a runner, doing track and field, cross country, got injured and basically had to stop, and basically having my identity wrapped up in that, that led to my first real experience with depression and what it, felt like to not want to get out of bed in the morning. And it's tough. Wow. Obviously that's nothing in comparison to what a lot of other folks go through. That was kind of where it started. And then that kind of, evolved into anxiety eventually, and then full-fledged panic attacks where I, would be just kind of laid out on the floor, heart palpitations is one of the scariest things you can experience. So yeah, it's tough, especially as an adolescent. Those are tough years. So when a lot of it, I started to experience a lot of that for the first time. And then, fast forward, finishing up high school, that's when I really was at a low spot with depression. And um, a lot of that at first was me going the traditional route of, seeking out therapy, um, psychologist, and, getting help more traditionally, which I'm grateful for at the time. I did need it at that point. But then kind of weaning off all that, and looking at more alternative routes like meditation, like prayer, deep breathing, which I'm still developing those habits, but uh, it's definitely been helpful to look at other routes. And but yeah, it's been a journey. I think, we're all human. We all have known what it's like to be in low places and scared, and especially as young adults, it's could be a tumultuous time. So, but really grateful to for the ups, grateful for the downs, because it's all part of the journey. But no, I appreciate you guys sharing. And really the purpose of this podcast is to, create a safe space, especially for young adults who are, going through the, similar things to what we just mentioned. And, really this podcast exists to open up conversations, to break stigma. You know, you don't have to be okay all the time. No one is, and it's okay to acknowledge that and just be real. Um, Putting on a mask isn't going to help anybody. So that's really why this podcast exists. And a lot of it comes down to self-awareness, right? To having compassion for yourself, and being aware of your triggers. And I love to hear from you guys. Like, have you tried anything like journaling, mindfulness? What has your experience been like? What's helped you kind of cope and manage depression or anxiety?
I'm keep doing the little circle thing, I guess, for now. For me, meditation has helped me a lot, with certain things. I can't speak like recently. I actually was in a, and like I guess technically still like am in like a depressive like period. I've never experienced like depression before, really. I was always like, it's all related, obviously, right? It's all like neurologically really similar, but I've never actually experienced like depression itself, and I think it was the cause is like a lot of different just events happening that just all decided to happen together, and I kind of just like I'm like a little kid in that I hate losing. Like I just don't like to lose stuff. And like I need to win. I need to win my way. As a runner, Joey, I'm not like you might feel similar about things. So like when I'm ever like not like I guess socially, right, there's like a hierarchy in life, and if I'm not like
Hmm.
at the place I want to be, that might be impacting me indirectly as well with everything going on. So I actually did if you ever heard of ketamine therapy, I actually started doing that, and I have 4 sessions total. And I've actually noticed some insane benefits, and that's a topic we'll touch on probably in future episodes, and maybe this one. But the psychedelics impact on mental health it's astounding. If you look at like ketamine, the effective rate is around about like 75%, 80% or so, and there's actually not too many side effects seen so far thus far. And you actually notice these effects very quickly. Like a week ago, I actually would not have been able to meet with you guys on this podcast, and right now, I honestly feel I feel fine. So it's crazy. I've had 2 sessions and it's crazy the benefits that it has had on me. And if you look at like antidepressants, there's a lot of side effects, and it's about 20 like I don't forget the exact rate, but the rate's not that high. It's like 25 to 50%. And there's you see a lot of doctors and people just saying like antidepressants will like fix you, and that's just not true. Like there's other means that are necessary. Antidepressants are just one small element to like a large scale of things. And sometimes like these like ketamine and other things might be needed for severe circumstances and situations. So it's just something to think about as we talk more.
Absolutely. Appreciate you sharing that, Max. And yeah, I definitely experienced I was on, SSRIs for a time and lots of, just unpleasant side effects. And it's it's good for when you really, really need it. But like you said, it's not like a long-term really mend at all. But appreciate you sharing that. And Tim, what's been helpful for you?
Yeah, no, I love that. I guess I had a chance to do a group ketamine session, but I decided not to. And really lately just been doing like Bible study and prayer and other spiritual means to try to achieve something that is similar to that. For me, it's having an empathetic witness. I think it's very important that you're able to have a safe space to share and be vulnerable with people in a way that doesn't shame and further traumatize you. And just doing stuff that makes you feel happy, accepting all parts of yourself, even the parts that you don't like about yourself. Obviously, getting plenty of sleep and noticing the interactions between the physical health, the financial health, the mental health, the social health. It's all interrelated. Um, and I like to think of the analogy of like the world is like, you go to like a petting zoo and you see a donkey in a small enclosure and the donkey's unhappy. Well, that's I think modern day people. Like, and the people that are happy in that circumstance is a little odd, don't you think? So it's okay if you're unhappy. It's not your fault. And not to blame society necessarily, but understand that we can change our environment, like
Mhm.
James Clear talks about, to better bring out the best parts of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about changing your environment. And one thing that's always been therapeutic for me is getting out in nature. It sounds cliche, but that's, that's kind of our natural environment really as human beings is out in nature. And, we were used to be a little more agricultural, um, hunter gatherers, but we've become more civilized over time. And, like you said, Tim, it's sometimes you just feel like you're in a cage, like a animal in the zoo sometimes. And when you get out in nature, um, whether that's at your local park or whatever, it's just something shifts for me when I'm out there. So, have you guys had a similar experience? Do you find the outdoors therapeutic?
For sure. I just like think that as humans, I mean, obviously I don't follow this necessarily, but I don't think we were like meant to just biologically be working like these 9 to 5s, right? And just like sitting still all day because it's not healthy. And it makes me think about like this like what is are the law of physics or whatever, like what's stays in motion or whatever. It relates, I think, honestly, physiologically as well. Like if you're sitting still, not doing much as well, like your depressive episodes continue. And that you just make me think about this like going back to the ketamine just for now, there's this topic that I thought was really interesting, and the reason why it's actually really effective for a lot of people with depression is because first off, there's like this topic called neurogenesis, and there's new neurons that form, but there's also this neuroplastic window, where your brain, where you can actually start forming new habits. And that's the reason a
Mm,
lot of these treatments don't work for people with depression, and other things, because you're not able to do, like, you're just not able to do stuff. It's like getting through
mm.
the day is already a shitload of stuff. Excuse my language. I don't know if you guys curse at all, but
So
there's already a load of stuff itself. So that's just something to keep in mind. And that's why a lot of, it seems like a lot of like the happiest countries, happiest people are outside a lot, in nature a lot, getting their sunlight. So I don't know. Just an interesting thing about.
yeah, no, absolutely. And you look at some civilizations that are more rural or outdoors, and they don't have a lot, but they're a lot of those cultures are super happy, overall. I mean, they're not to generalize all cultures like that, but a lot of them are just in it, living more simple. There's something about a simple lifestyle that just, is good for the human spirit. But yeah, and similar to ketamine, I was listening to podcasts about actually ibogaine being used for veterans with PTSD and with uh, traumatic brain disorders, and it's just amazing to hear that. It's similar, it's just psychedelic substance, but it's been illegal for a while, and they've been running trials for veterans, and it's been essentially saving lives, which is amazing. And um, obviously take it with a grain of salt, but I think there's a lot of it's definitely worth the research. It's worth the clinical trials to they were even saying that this might be one of the greatest you know medical discoveries of our time. So it's there's a lot of untapped you know healers out there that are just have been naturally given to us on the earth. So it's definitely worth staying open minded, and it's not for everybody, but worth doing your research for sure. And Tim, I know you're mentioning kind of taking a more holistic approach, like looking at your physical health, like your social health. How do you go about doing that, or what does that look like for you?
It's interesting because lately I found myself just complaining this week, like just being ungrateful, and that's today's totally different. And it's funny because recently I started like a daily gratitude practice with a friend, and we text each other something we're grateful for, and we kind of fallen off the wagon with that. But there's apps. I think science says like handwriting is better for your learning or something like that. But just the simple act of being grateful for the basics. It's so important in this age of social comparison and trying to keep up with the Joneses and put on this polished mask that you're just grateful that, hey, we all have electricity right now. We're able to, record this podcast right now and because you don't want to take anything for granted. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one of like, oh,
go ahead, Max. Yeah.
that's one of like the things you make me think about social media as well. And so I like actually run a social media account designed for like advocating mental health, as I explained before at Rise Up Riseman. But like when I think about social media, you think how people just put up their highlights, right? You only put up like, even when you're in like, let's say like a severe depression, you can still potentially get some posts up that like at least from like me, like making a lot of videos recently has been really tough because I haven't had like any energy whatsoever, but I've like had to figure out something I can do. And through social media, you're never gonna think like that person's like not doing well right now. They're like, oh, this is like the positivity guy. This guy's like supposed to be real,
Mhm.
always really happy, always like very joyful. Why can't I be like this? And that's kind of like the like how people think right when you see any sort of post. And it's like I think social media could be more beneficial if we focused honestly putting up lowlights and being sincere on it as well. The problem with that though is there's a stigma with mental health, and like if you say you're not okay, it can impact you in your job search and other things like it, and that's just like the sad reality with it. Like it did not be, I just try to be like cognizant of everything and try to be aware of it. But it's just like you have to find the line and see what you can do. And I'm curious what you guys think about social media in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we mentioned the comparison game and keeping up with the Joneses, and social media plays a big part in that. And, you just think back 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have, you know, connection to everyone in the world at the touch of your fingers. So now we're just, and you know, it's a lot easier to play that comparison game now. So I think that's a huge trigger for a lot of people. Like, God forbid you're not a millionaire at age 16, you're getting it wrong, or it's just like, it's just, it's wild, just the the comparison that goes on. So I mean, how do you guys handle that, or how do you cope with that? Just, seeing all these people kind of flaunting their lifestyles. Who knows if you know they're showing the whole truth? Most of the time they're not, and there's a lot of stuff you don't see on camera. uh a lot of, sadness or discontentment. So curious, what do you guys think about that, and how have you kind of coped or managed with that?
Yeah, so I try to create more than I consume and catch myself when I'm consuming. And lately it's been more Googling mental health news, like the latest articles on mental health, Google Scholar, like mental health scholarly research, and Yahoo Finance economic news. But sometimes, do I really need to know how terrible the world is and the economy is? So I have to catch myself there too, because it's another escapism. Um,
Absolutely.
just reminding myself that, like, everyone's just put on a mask and no one knows what they're talking about really. Like Gary Vee likes to say, who cares what people think about you? I have to continuously remind myself that, because you're right, Max, there is a stigma, with like work, and you feel like, when I think about the best leaders though, that they're honest, they're vulnerable, and they're like a servant leader, right? And that's what I really admire.
And they're willing to put themselves in like the situation of any sort of like employee, right? You think about like a Gary Vee who's just like incredible because he's so vulnerable and so open. He's just so real with people, and it's like people love that because that's something that's so hard to do, to be that authentic with people, right? And even like his low points, he's still putting up videos, like sharing some of that stuff, which is really, I really love Gary Vee for that sake. And he brings up like you were saying, Tim, about like the points about like how he mentions how like it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. Your life is your life, and who like it's obviously hard to internalize and like really appreciate that, but it's just something that is true though. It's like it doesn't matter if you have a friend making what, like 7 figures, like their life is separate than yours, like good for them, right? You shouldn't be comparing yourself to anyone. But yeah, it's obviously easier said than done to do that. It's kind of like we kind of naturally compare ourselves. I feel like that might be like the biologically how we what we naturally do, and it seems like the people who like really let go, and it's a hard thing to do, and that's why a lot of people like look up to it and respect it, right? Because it's not easy. Yeah, I had another thought I was gonna say. Maybe it'll come back, but that's yeah.
Awesome. No, no, absolutely, we'll go back to you if you think about it. But yeah, there's definitely power of staying in your own lane, and everyone is on their own journey. It sounds super cliche, but it's so true. If everyone just focused on their own journey and mission, I think we would be able to avoid a lot of the comparison game, a lot of the keeping up with the Joneses, because at the end of the day, no one's life is perfect. You know, no matter what you have or don't have, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we all, you know, go through the trials and tribulations that are inevitable. Whether that's losing a loved one or losing a pet. So we all experience suffering at the end of the day, and I think that's super important to remember. It doesn't matter what your quote unquote status is or whatever. Um, at the end of the day, we're all vulnerable as humans, and I think the greatest reason for getting up in the morning is like, who can I help today? Who can I make smile today? Who can I just make their lives a little easier today? And that's really in your darkest moments. I think that's the most powerful thing to do is there's always somebody who has it worse. And again, it sounds like another cliche, but it's so true. If you can just find that person, just help that one person, no matter how much darkness you're facing, it's just gonna light up your day and light up that person's day. So, you know, I think that's the most important takeaway. At the end of the day, especially with all the social media and all the glitz and glimmer that you see, and um, seeing beyond that is powerful.
Yeah, it makes me wonder like when I think about these things, like are people like I don't want to say are like people dumb, but like are you like when you see someone just putting up like, oh, here's like my six figs earnings for like and which is like great for like good for them, like you made that money, it's fine. But like when I see people just posting flexing all the time, I just like it I just it doesn't it I don't think it's right because they only put up their highlights and maybe they don't have any lowlights. Who knows? Maybe they don't have time, but that just doesn't seem too human in it. And it's not like it's this culture of just like I'm better than you. I have like it's I win, right? And goes back to this idea of like how we just always want to like we all just want to win, and that's not where happiness comes from. This like idea of there will always be someone better than you in that way case, and there will always be someone worse than you. And that's something I've actually found myself like wrestling with a bit lately as well. Like it's like no, I will win. I will be the champion kind of like, but that mindset is not good. And I've seen a lot of people like who struggle with like depression, anxiety, and mental health have actually like go through that mindset and think like that. You
Mhm.
see a lot of like champions, a lot of people very successful. It's because it's all unprocessed emotional trauma and all this crap
Mhm.
that they just bring to like, I win, I am the best. And you realize that once you actually become the best, a lot of them, they still are depressed and they are still unhappy. Why? Because
Yeah.
they're not actually focusing on the real issue, um, at hand. And that's something that like I had to like realize, especially with like my social media as well. Because I was at first it was what the mission all about helping people, all about like true impact. And at a point like you start to lose as you grow, you lose focus a bit about why you truly do what you're doing. And then
Mhm.
I was thinking like I'm just going to be the best. I need to just be great, and that's not a good mindset. And I'm glad I'm able to like come down and like relax and stay grounded before I go too crazy. Um, but it's like thinking like that I see that hurts the world a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at that's a big thing in athletics, especially with a lot of athletes, boxers, whatever, basketball players, NBA, NFL. Part of it is kind of having that ego aspect of, hey, I'm gonna be the greatest there ever was, which I think there's a degree of that can be helpful. Like, hey, I'm gonna do well. But there has to be a balance, like you said. At the end of the day, if all you're doing is just feeding ego, feeding ego, feeding ego, um, it's good to have self-esteem to think well of yourself. But if that's all you're riding on, even if you do get to the top, it's lonely at the top if you don't care about anyone else but yourself. So I think a big huge part of success is your relationships. What do your family relationships look like? What do your relationships look like with your friends, with your coworkers? Um, I think that's super impressive. If you can look at somebody and you see they have healthy relationships, and not necessarily like not everyone's gonna like you. You're not for everybody, but I think if you can look at your life and see healthy, flourishing relationships, um, like Gary Vee says, I'm working for the funeral, or like people to show up at my funeral. Basically, he's not working to be the necessarily the best that ever was, but I think to impact lives, to as many lives as you can. Um, if you if you make that your sole motivation, you can't lose. Like if you're, obviously we can't always be super positive all the time, and we need to take care of ourselves too. So there has to be balance of self-care. But if you live your life knowing like, hey, I'm just going to get up today and help somebody, make someone's day a little bit better, that's what people like Gary Vee are kind of focused on. Like, hey, I want people to be at my funeral because I impacted their lives. I think that's super inspiring. And if you live your life like that, it's no matter what kind of um, what measure of success you see according to the world standards, everyone has a different measure of success. And I think a huge one is your relationships. And did you love other people? Did you bring light into the world? Right. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that everyone should be required to go to therapy, just like we're required to go to school, and that it should be free. And then this question, who pays for it? Maybe the health insurance companies, because I think in the long run, they'd save money if we all were mentally healthier, and then we wouldn't have as many incidences of gun violence. And I mean, good job taking guns away from people. Like some people, like, it's not going to happen, right? So I think it's a good place to start is that. And you think about people that are like very wealthy, they're very attractive, very popular. Inside, they might feel like just not good enough still. Their permanent residence is in the land of lack, and that's really sad. That's really sad because you'd have no idea.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're coming to the end of time here, Tim. But appreciate you sharing. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the first episode. We really appreciate you being here. You know, a lot of podcasts start up and they fizzle out, but we're here for the long run and we're here for you. So feel free to reach out. Max is gonna post this on his
Check us
community,
out.
and
Rise Up Together, community all about discussing mental health, bringing opportunity to people. It comes back to this idea of impact we're all trying to do. So check us out. Yeah.
yeah, we'd
Thanks,
love
man.
to hear from you guys. And if you're struggling, feel free to reach out. We'd love to help in any way.